My white paper focuses on the rebalance to Asia. It's our current strategy both with our allies and with China in the Asia-Pacific region. And it focuses on how really currently, I like to say we have an unbalanced rebalance, meaning that we focused a lot on the military portion of this rebalance. So the whole idea of the rebalance is to bring the United States back there in force after this decade of wars in the Middle East. So currently we have tens of thousands of troops in South Korea and Japan. South Korea is somewhat of a different case because they're focused so much on North Korea, but in Japan, China sees these forces as a very forward-deployed, aggressive bases that worry them quite a lot. It changes the focus from this aggressive, forward-deployed focus that seems like it's against China. Even if it isn't, it still seems like it is. So it changes that focus to a more defensive, reactionary, more able to react to any possible Chinese aggression should that occur.
Well, my white paper looks at the intersection between security and development. I've always been interested in these two fields and how really neither of them exists in isolation. So my project is on mapping foreign aid and militancy, how the United States is at a critical juncture where it can use georeferenced information, that is security and development data that has geographic coordinates attached to it, mapping these points using geographic information systems or GIS technology, and seeing where potential hotspots or trends and patterns occur. But we're looking at where our foreign aid flows currently and also where acts of militancy occur, so acts of militancy that is insurgent violence, terrorist violence, any sort of armed conflict that is occurring already in our places where we allocate foreign aid, since we give so much money to places that do continue to experience militant violence despite our aspirations of changing that with our foreign aid. It's important to look at the relationship and then see how, if we know that this is where aid is going, then we can eventually allocate it more effectively.
So my white paper looks at Chinese aid and investment in Africa. So Chinese aid and investment in Africa actually jeopardizes U.S. National interests. Policymakers have put lots of pressure on Washington to directly respond and interfere in Chinese economic involvement in Africa. However, Chinese malpractices in the region actually have created a lot of resentment against the Chinese. Therefore, I propose Washington capitalize on this resentment with a two-pronged initiative that both funds NGOs to highlight development practices in Africa that contrast with those of the Chinese. China is very strong in many regions of the world, one of which being Africa, and I think that a lot of people are concerned that when the Chinese are building these new infrastructure so quickly that it is something we should be worried about. But in fact, their capacity is very weak and the quality is quite poor. So I think it really is not a sustainable practice and one that contrasts with the sustainability of U.S. and Africa.